Doing okay, kid?
Oh, yep, I was just checking something. I should get back to work.
Anything I can do to help, I'm available.
Thank you. It's just that I have a dependent patient whose daughter might have ditched her.
You don't always get to see the best side of people.
I guess it just kind of makes me sad.
It is sad, but you can't dwell on it. That'll tear you apart. Look, you've taken some time to step away. That's good. Don't forget, your patient needs you. She's still here?
Yes, I've kind of been avoiding her. I don't really know what to tell her about her daughter.
Well, you don't have to have all the answers. Sometimes just asking how someone's doing is enough. You got this. Come on.
Hello, all. Welcome back to What's On Tonight, a podcast with elaborate, quirky, and unpredictable conversations about TV, movies, and more. I'm Becky.
And I'm Mandy.
Today we are covering The Pitt, Season 1, Episode 6, titled 12 p.m. Please note this is a spoiler-free podcast, so if you haven't watched the episode yet and don't want to be spoiled, just come back and check us out after you've finished. Episode 6 was written by Cynthia Adarkwa, which I think is a fabulous name, and directed by Damien Marcano, who also directed Episode 2.
Damien Marcano sounds like one of the vampires from What We Do in the Shadows.
It does. Or like a prominent businessman you would read in one of those sexy
romances, yeah.
Like dominant Damien Marcano.
Yeah. I'm going to make a call back to that later, but go ahead.
So what's this one about?
Mel searches for a patient's daughter. Collins mediates family conflict over teen pregnancy, and Robbie faces a hospital ultimatum. Santos deals with an ego check. She sure does.
Cha-ching! Best part of the episode, and then she still me, and it just anyway.
She didn't learn that much.
No, she didn't. So my first impression, I think this was the slowest of the episodes so far. I feel like I say that every episode. I don't mean slow as in it was boring. It just slow as in the storylines were chill. I don't know. It just felt a lot slower, but I liked it. I think it was still a good episode. I give it 4 brainworms out of 5.
Oh my God, I've just started noting down every time I wanted to yell at you with the prince. I hate you. I you every time something disgusting happens in one of these episodes. You know what's funny? My thought about this was that this was the first episode that really kind of felt a little bit like an ER episode. Not in a bad way.
I could see that.
I think we've got 15 episodes, and some of these are going to have to be building episodes. That's just the term. I don't know if I invented that or if that's just something that people already say, but it's just kind of building up to other things. It's laying the groundwork. It's like when the cake is in the oven, you're just waiting for it to bake, and all the science is happening in there.
Yeah.
I just think there was a lot of like work on steady progression with certain storylines that had already been set up. Not a lot of new ground was covered, but we got some more insight into these characters, and it was really more just about the flow of the ER and the diagnoses that they had made and working with the patients and the medical experiences that were going on, and a little bit less about the personal lives of the doctors.
Yeah, I can see exactly what you're saying, and I agree. I do think they gave us a little bit more about not so much the patients, but a little bit more about the doctors.
Yeah, there were little moments.
Yeah, but to your point, I think we have to be patient with the 15-hour arc, that there are going to be, and it's with any TV show, there are going to be those slower parts, but they're necessary to build up to bigger things. We talked about it with What We Do in the Shadows. It's just a necessary thing to have happen. So I hope people don't see an episode like this and start to get disappointed, because I know it'll pay off later on.
Yeah, I can't imagine if you've been watching the entire entire series that you would really be disappointed with this episode. In podcast terms, I was telling my husband, I think this will probably be one of our quicker episodes because
Yeah.
I don't feel like there was anything super controversial or anything that we haven't already started conversation about. But I also didn't hate it.
Yeah.
One of the things I thought was good is that this was a little bit easier for me to follow along with what was going on because it was more like a traditional medical drama. It was just kind of some little bite-sized pieces of different things that were going on. Maybe it was that there wasn't a whole lot of overlap with the cast. Everybody's storyline stayed self-contained, maybe.
Yeah, there were good crossover moments, but you're
Yeah.
right. Each person seemed, for their important moments, they seemed isolated or paired with one person
Right.
to make that big thing. You're not talking about 7 different people's reactions to something.
And I don't think anybody that has steadily been watching the show wouldn't have, I can't imagine anybody would have watched it and thought, well, that sucked. I mean, it was still
Oh, no.
quality storyline. There was still a lot being brought to the fore about the medical industry in this country today and some of the challenges that these doctors face, some of the medical and ethical dilemmas that they get into. I mean, it was still a really good episode.
I agree. Well, we open up where we left off, and I'm glad they answered how the mother found out that the daughter was pregnant. And it made me so sad when she was like, I had to find out from a confused teenage boy, which makes me think of the other side when there is a person, a man involved in a decision like that, and they are a part of it, how you know the song Brick by Ben Folds 5? That made me think of that song. I went way deeper than they did, but that's kind of what stood out in my head. But the look of oh shit on Robbie's face when Collins explained that the aunt was the mom or the mom was the aunt.
Yeah. What doesn't seem to have sunk in with Robbie is had they gone ahead and done that, I can't imagine in a real world scenario what kind of legal ramifications they would have been. He's already skating a line, and I can't imagine what would have happened had they gone ahead and given her the abortifacient without double checking that that was her mom.
Yeah, I feel like again, we talked about it, he's walking a fine line. And I thought the same thing. It's like, well, okay, if they had gone ahead and done it, wouldn't they be facing like a massive lawsuit or something like that?
That's what I would think.
But again, how do you prove
that you didn't know
that that's not her mother?
When I go to take my kids to get any kind of a medical service, I have to present ID. Of course, in the state of Tennessee, we're in Taliban land here, so it's not an issue here anymore. But for any other medical procedure that I would have to take them to get that was a major medical procedure, I imagine before we became a non-democracy in the state of Tennessee, I think you probably did have to show a lot of ID. I don't even know if it really could happen in a real world scenario, but possibly.
I mean, I think the only way around it would be a birth certificate.
Right.
You would have to show a birth certificate and a driver's license, because otherwise, if that was her aunt and they had the same last name, like say mom wasn't married or whatever, I mean, I would take that at okay.
Yeah, absolutely. If she says I'm the mother, then yeah, absolutely. You're right. I really don't know about that. I mean, I was just thinking I do have to show ID, but I mean, there are a lot of single moms. There are remarried moms. There's all kinds of reasons that you wouldn't have the same last name as your child. So yeah, I didn't think that through, but I do want to go back a little bit to what you said about the young man that the mom brought up. And maybe we're going further into this than the storyline is eventually going to, who knows? But I did think about that. And this goes back to what we talked about last week, where this to me is just such a personal issue. At one point, I was practically a one issue voter over this, my pro-life beliefs. And I feel badly that we live in a world where young men who want to step up to the plate, who want to be involved if there is an accidental pregnancy and the young man may feel like he wants to go ahead and take responsibility and be a father. I feel bad that we don't live in a world where that young man should have a say, because it is sad and it's rare. But the reality is, and once upon a time, again, in the days of yore, I might have really gone down that rabbit hole and been a little outraged on his behalf. But we're living in a world where women's health care decisions, female children's healthcare decisions are being made by men like the people running our current administration. And unfortunately, because we cannot get their very fundamental, basic right to their own body and their health care, and even in life or death scenarios, you can't trust that your doctor is going to save you over a fetus. I can no longer really feel a whole lot of sympathy. That's not the right thing. I do feel sympathy. I just feel like, unfortunately, we don't live in a world where that type of young man is the norm.
Yeah.
You know, I remember even when I had Ava 21 years ago, one of the saddest things I ever heard, one of my labor and delivery nurses, she told me, she said, this experience that you're having with birth, you're happily married, your husband is excited, he's here and supporting you, your parents on both sides are here supporting you, your friends and siblings are here. She said, that's not the norm of what we do here. She said it's usually going to be, you know, if it's older people, they might be on their third marriage, or they might be single and never married. She said, but too often it's 14-year-olds who are coming in here who are giving birth to babies that they're just not prepared for. And a lot of times they don't have any support whatsoever.
Yeah, that's sad.
Yeah. So all that to say that I thought the same thing you did about that young man, and felt like I appreciate that they are bringing more complexity to this story, but I definitely fall in line with, unfortunately, he's not the one that has to carry that baby. So
Right. Yeah. And that's my next point is my heart went out to the daughters, you know, just saying, I don't want to be a teen mom. And I respect her for that because, you know, like you said, it's not the man that has to live with 9 months of what changes happen to your body. And especially at such a young age when you've not fully matured physically or mentally for that matter.
Right.
And then everything that comes after, it's not black and white. It is all a very big gray area. And I felt so bad for her. And I wanted to punch her mom when her mom came back with, you should have thought about that before having sex.
Yeah.
Really, mom, now is not the time
I know.
for the sex talk and shaming her kid.
I know. You know, Becky, I think if I'd had a 17-year-old back in 2008, I don't know that I wouldn't have been more like that, Mom. I hope not. You know, even when I was very pro-life, I had a friend who back in my late teens, I mean, very 18, 19, very young, she got pregnant and did not want to have a baby. And she knew what my thoughts were about it, but I didn't want her to go through that experience alone. And I was going to go with her. She ended up having a miscarriage, but I was prepared to go with her. So I don't think I would have been like that. But I also, especially when we find out later that she got shamed by her own mother into giving birth, I can empathize a little. It was very obvious. Like I noticed that actress, that she was anguished. Like there was a lot of anger, but I don't know if you noticed like the little moments when she was looking at her daughter and you could tell that actress was trying to project that mom really loves her child, that even though she's not doing the right thing in that moment, that she really does love her child. You're adopted, and I have, like we talked about last week, I'm from a single teenage mother who was abandoned and on her own. And 10 years ago, we might have felt a little differently about, even you, I think, might have felt a little bit more of the complexity of somebody who's almost 18 and apparently from what we know so far, was consensual and all of that. But like I said, we're living in a world where if that girl had some kind of god-awful, it's no longer about choice. It's about life or death. And the life of the mother is as important as the life of a fetus. And we live in a world where even if that girl had some kind of horrible complication, she may not be allowed to have access to an abortion. So how in the world can you not root for her right to do what she wants with her body?
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. I talk about having kids. I didn't birth any of those kids. I've just been with them all since they were born, and I call them my kids. But my point, I don't know what it's like to be an actual biological mom, I guess is the way I want to say it. But for me, that just was a shitty thing to say at that time when her daughter's in a very big, as you would say, existential crisis.
For sure. It was not the right thing.
Yeah, it was not the right thing.
At all. I don't know why I've felt the need to, I guess, just devil's advocate that this is how well this show is doing at showing the complexity of it. Is that even that mom wasn't really a cartoon villain. You could see that she genuinely loved her kid, and I was getting so mad at her, but I had to take myself in the way back machine and think about how I would have reacted once upon a time. I guess A, I just like to ramble and digress. It's just what I do. But also B, I'm enjoying this conversation between us about where we stand on the pro-life, pro-choice issue, the abortion issue in this country today, because it's helping me a little to remember. It's letting me let go of some of my anger at some of these people to go through this and remember that it is a complex issue that these days, unfortunately, because of the current state of our world, it really can't be a complex issue. You are on one side or you are on the other. You care about the medical health care of women or you don't, in my mind. But underneath all of that is a lot of complexity.
It's gray. It's very, very gray.
Yeah. So if anyone is out there and they consider themselves pro-life and they don't see themselves ever moving the needle on that, I guess I want to say that for 40 something years, I was adamantly, vehemently, vocally pro-life. Every time I had sexual intercourse before I got married, I told him, if I get pregnant, you're a father. I'm not even considering it. It's not going to happen. And so I just want, if there are those people out there and they feel triggered, I want them to understand that to a certain degree, I do understand what they believe and why they believe what they believe, and that no one is pro-abortion. No one is pro-abortion. No one is out there going, I want to get pregnant so I can have an abortion. And I just invite them to really think more critically about it. Are our daughters, are women as important to you as a fetus? That's all. I may keep, as the story line goes on, I don't want to keep hijacking it, but that is why I keep trying to talk about this issue, is that it's still very important to me, but it's more important on the other end. It's about how horrifically, like that mom, just horrifically blind I was to the importance of women's lives and the value that we already have as born living people, and how unimportant that health is to the vast majority of the medical world, men, even some women. We're just undervalued. I invite people who think of themselves as hardline pro-life to really visit that idea of how valuable are women to you.
That was very deep.
Thanks.
So back to the mom, a couple of other things before I get to my final point about this, and then let me know if you have anything else to add. But, the mom made that smart ass comment when Collins was going to get her anti-nausea meds. And the mom said, I never did meds, but sure.
Okay.
I wrote it here. I really don't want to hate this woman, but she isn't giving me much else to go on.
Right.
And then I do think it was very telling at the end of that storyline when she and the mom and the aunt are getting into it. She says, you're treating her like mom treated you. That kind of was eye-opening to make me think this daughter was not planned. And her parents probably didn't give her a choice, and her life probably hasn't been rainbows and sunshine. Not that she doesn't love her kid by any means, but I think it's very obvious that there's way more to this story than we've gotten so far. And I hope that by the end of the shift, they fully flesh it out and we do get to see a hopefully positive resolve.
She was unpleasant, and you can force someone to have a child, but you cannot force them to be ready to be
a parent
and be emotionally ready to handle all of what comes with that, and the selflessness that you really have to be good at it, to be really, really good at it. You have to be ready to put all of their needs and wants above your own. And that's a lot to ask from somebody whose prefrontal cortex isn't going to be finished forming for, another 5-6 years.
Yeah, mine didn't fully form until mid-30s.
Same. Yeah, I think I didn't pick up on really thinking about it like that, but I have definitely seen in my own life people I know whose parents were forced to become parents very young, and with the older kids, that there is sometimes some of that almost competitive feeling towards them.
Oh, I need her to give me, like Poison said, give me something to believe in, lady. I will give kudos to Robbie at how good he is at de-escalating tense situations within his ER. I think it was a very smart move to separate the aunt from the situation, though, sadly. If she and mom could have like a calm conversation, I think what the aunt is saying is very sensible and would make sense to the mother if she would they could just both take a deep breath and listen to each other. They might be able to help this child that they both obviously love and care about. So that's my final point on that, unless you have anything else you want to add.
No, I think I beat that to death.
I love it. Next, I want to talk about our dear sweet Robbie. Him spotting Gloria and trying to hide was absolute hilarity.
That was
and
funny.
I feel like that's what Darren is like. Like he tries to avoid me seeing him get up because he knows I'm going to ask him for something. So he's like trying to like slink down the stairs like in the cartoon. That just made me laugh. This whole management company thing irks me. I just think it's sad that on top of managing, literally having people's life in your hands, you have to worry about the bottom line. And I get that you have to be able to bring in money to have the hospital, to have the care, to have all of that. But it kills me how these management companies want to step in and, like Robbie said, this is all about your profit. Profit first, shareholders first, patients second. And I think the reality of seeing that woman and with Gloria and Gloria being like, this is the bottom line. I feel like this is going to have not necessarily a positive effect on him for the remainder of this shift, which we already saw when he's obviously, I think, unwillingly having to tell his staff to pad the charts.
I don't really understand what pad the charts mean.
So, okay. So you go in and they find out you have strep throat. Rather than saying just going straight to doing a strep test, they might test you for the flu. They might do a COVID test, or they might poke and prod and check your throat and rule out other things. Well, everything that they put in that chart is a cost.
They can bill you for?
Yes. Like, for example, when my heart rate went wacky, had to go to the emergency room and had an overnight stay at the hospital, I saw 5 different doctors during that visit. And every one of them would come in and ask me the same thing, what happened? And by the 4th, I was over it. I was like, do y'all not talk to each other? Do I not have a chart? And they're like, well, yeah, we just want to make sure that we're getting all the accurate information. Once I got my bill, all 5 of those doctors charged me for a winky fingers visit. That's what padding the chart means.
Gross.
So yeah, I was very disgusted. And that lady asking him or offering him a quote unquote incentive to make him this. So he's, this is proof. And it's happening right now in our government where they're trying to cut very important aid and things like that because they want to, it's all about money. When did it stop being about this life that you took an oath to protect and heal? And all you care about is that you're not making enough money or your patient scores are low when your doctor is a very good qualified doctor is sitting there telling you that's not the problem. This is the problem. Give me more staff. Give me, more and I can make this a better hospital, but their idea is to sell it off to people who all they want to do is make a profit. And we, the patients, are the ones who are going to end up, you might be in there an hour less than you would have been before, but you're going to end up paying more in the end. That's what all that is. Sorry.
No, that's the problem with having privatized healthcare in this country. And I'm a capitalist, but everything is a sliding scale. Almost everything in this world is, again, not black and white. It's a sliding scale and complex. And part of the reason I believe that American medicine has been on the forefront of some critical discoveries and breakthroughs in medication and science are because we've had funding that a lot of it provided by very wealthy people, Bill Gates, who has funded quite a bit in vaccine research, Dolly Parton, who helped Vanderbilt finally come up with the COVID vaccine. The problem is that you have to really trust in human nature to an unreasonable degree to believe that the very best way to provide the best health care for people is laissez-faire capitalism, because humans are inherently, just most of us are pretty greedy. And if you have been born with a silver spoon in your mouth and never really had to look at the cost of what your decisions are doing to the people that are far, far, far less wealthy than you, it's probably pretty easy to just look at it as another industry. But that's immoral. It's immoral. And that just goes back to my whole philosophy of, I just don't think people think enough about the fact that we're all going to die one day, which sounds very morbid, but I don't mean it that way. I mean it in that you can't take it with you. Like, no matter how wealthy you are, this is part of what makes me incredibly skeptical whenever anybody that is a billionaire or greater tries to claim that they are deeply Christian or that they understand Christianity or really morals in general, humanistic even. Like, anybody that claims to really care about people and has that much money, I have to really look at it with suspicion, because you could not spend all of that money in 10 lifetimes. Your children can't spend that amount of money in 10 lifetimes, but you have the vast majority of the rest of us down here, and the wealth gap is getting bigger and bigger and bigger every day. So those people just continue making more and more and more money based on decisions that, are going to cut. What was that episode of What We Do in the Shadows, where they had the investment company and we were talking about how they were just acting like animals, throwing this big party because they were going to lay off like half their workforce to save like 0.0002% for their shareholders, which is a drop in the bucket for them. But in the insurance industry, that's potentially thousands of people's lives you're talking about. So how you can believe in a higher being and not worry that they are going to call you into question one day for your callous disregard for the vast majority of humanity, I don't know. I don't know how they sleep at night.
Completely agree. That whole section was annoying. I'm hoping that's not the end result, that this hospital gets taken over.
Did you notice she said Dr. Robbie's name wrong?
Yes.
Probably deliberately.
His face. And that's what my next note is. Dana clocked that he was about to lose his shit and came over and was like, yeah, we got something coming in. She just does little things each episode that make me love her more. And there's a couple more I'll talk about later.
Yeah.
She clocked it.
When she offered that Gloria mint.
Yeah. And Gloria, she just looks at her. I'm like, you go, Dana. Continuing on with Robbie. God, him having to deal that final blow to the parents was heartbreaking, but I love the way he handles them with such care and kindness. And then I really liked the family support specialist. I did not know that was a thing. That's really cool that there's someone specifically there at that hospital to help you understand what happens once the tubes come out, and stuff that not just, oh, this is sad, I know, I feel bad for you, but here's the realities of what's to come, and here's how I can help you through it. I thought that was cool.
One of the things I noticed, I know you had to have noticed, was that she's Catholic, and with the mom, and with both of us being Catholic, I thought that it was very interesting that they had that being part of her storyline. And this is a storyline that's, I think, heading towards really being about organ donation.
Yeah, I think that's how they're going to end it. I did notice her with her rosary beads throughout the episodes where she's by his bedside.
I don't think I picked up on it. If I did, I didn't remember, but it did make me Google exactly where the church stands on organ donation. And I was a little surprised, actually. They're absolutely okay with it. The church...
There's no reason they shouldn't be.
Church's official stance is that organ donation is the ethical and religious directives for Catholic healthcare services based on the principle of totality. Body parts are ordered for the good of the whole, affirm that organ donations from the living is a noble and charitable act. It does get a little bit grayer when you start talking about keeping someone alive, specifically to target with their, if they're brain dead and you keep their body alive to harvest organs. There's some debate within the church about that, but essentially the church is very much okay with organ donations, which surprised me because my friend Gwen, that her husband, she's 80 and her husband passed away a few years ago. And I was really upset with our priest because he wanted to be cremated. And the priest was very old school. He's still mad about Vatican II. And he gave her a lot of grief about him being cremated.
That's okay now, though.
Well, this was just a couple of years ago. It's been okay. He just is one of those who still believes that, and I wonder what counsel he would give to somebody about organ donation, because even though it's officially okay with the church, I mean, his argument to her was that the body should be intact for the day of resurrection. And I just thought that was crazy because
that's one thing that drives me nuts, because the Catholic Church, it's all about your soul.
Right.
Your soul. Your soul leaves your body when you die.
Right.
And goes into heaven. You don't walk into heaven physically, with half your face off if you got,
Right.
injured in an accident.
Right.
So that whole, I don't want to get into it, but
yeah, I don't want to make it a Catholic podcast, but my point about that was, if you do believe in the bodily resurrection, you have to believe that Jesus is going to be able to bring back people who have been dead for 20,000 years, and their corporeal remains are nothing but dust, if there's anything left on this planet.
He's going to be able to pull it off.
Right.
I trust him.
I think he can find...
I trust him that if my heart and lungs are with somebody else,
he's going to be able to pull those back together.
He's going to be able to be like, Becky, I got you. Let's go. I'm not where I am.
Now I'm picturing Jesus and we're all like an operation game. And he's like...
He's going to have a much steadier hand than us, though.
For sure. One hope. Anyway, go ahead.
I do hope the parents eventually give in to the organ donation, and I hope that we get to see his organs impact some of the patients that will probably enter into the ER, and the parents get to witness that gift that their son wanted to give.
Yeah, at least I hope the mom comes to peace with it, which as in a real world scenario, again, that's one of those things, like my brain can torture myself with every single horrible scenario, what if scenario on the planet, but some protection from God or nature, I literally cannot make my brain think about one of my children passing. I cannot go there. But I hope that I would eventually get to a point where I would be okay with, at peace with if God forbid something like that happened. But I also understand the idea of having a really tough time with it in the moment. The first time somebody has to introduce that idea to you, it might be very, very difficult.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I'm not thrilled that yet again they've made the woman the more hysterical of the two, but I do hope that... I also Googled, can you reject your child's or a dependent organ donation choice? And you cannot. If they're over 18 and they sign the organ donor card, you cannot go against their wishes. Legally, there's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah, and I think they're going to get there. Robbie just saying they need more time.
Yeah.
They just accepted their son isn't coming back. Now you want to, even though it was his wish, you want to,
cut your child. Yeah,
cut him up.
Yeah,
I understand her.
Yeah,
and I believe that they'll explain it to her that this was his wishes. That there's
I hope she comes to
what he wanted. This is what we're going to do. I hope they make it a full circle moment where not only just does she say, fine, do whatever, even though they're going to probably do it anyway.
Right.
But I hope that she gets to see what that gift does. And I believe that young girl giving the dad her email address and phone number, I think that might somehow
come back together.
So I hope that's what happens.
Maybe.
So you can see Dr. Robbie starting to break.
Before we move on from that, one more thing. Did you notice when they were holding their hand after he gave him the news and Robbie put his hand
on there? Yes.
That was so sweet. And you know what? Something, I don't know why it never occurred to me, but it first occurred to me today that he has a teenage son. I think it's really the first time I've kind of really put that together, that maybe that's part of his motivation for that.
I thought of that either. That's a good connect. But yeah, you can see all of this, and I don't think Gloria's trip to the ER has helped, but I really feel like you could see his mental armor starting to crack a little bit, like the way he snapped at McKay when she was talking about David's mom, and then his reaction when he realized lunch was from Dr. Adamson's sister. And by the way, randomly, just out of curiosity, I Googled Primanti's, and it is a real restaurant in Pittsburgh.
I was getting real hungry watching that.
Those sandwiches looked so...
They did.
So good.
I wonder if you just sent food to an ER. That was my thought. Like, do they take it? Like if they don't know where it's coming from, or can you do that these days?
I would assume so. I hope so.
Me
Like,
too.
I've often thought about going, there's a fire station down the street from my house that if our house caught fire, they would be the ones called. And I always think about dropping by like a chicken casserole or something, but I always am like, would they eat it in this? And I hate that we're in this, that's even a question. Before, back in the day, you just brought all your potluck wherever and fed
Yeah.
whoever. But I think if it's a sealed like box lunch, I don't think they would turn it down at all.
I think your
wouldn't.
firehouse probably would take your food, Becky. It's a little different when you're in like a sterile environment like that, I would think. Also schools, because you have to take into consideration. Like I hated that. It was a bummer, but I understood it. When my kids were little, discovered that unlike when we were kids and you could just send cake or ice cream or cookies or whatever for birthdays or celebrations, it's a lot more strict these days. And a lot of it has to do with allergies and not the school's not wanting to be responsible for it. I have a cousin who's a fireman, and what I know about firehouses isn't much, but I do know that as far as food goes, it's a bit like a frat house. And sometimes like a home. I think some of them are a little bit different than others. I talked to some firemen a few weeks ago in Walmart that were shopping for their firehouse. They have people who every shift it's like your turn to cook.
They cook.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think that probably I don't think they have the same kind of rules and regulations about what they can, because they're just grown people feeding themselves. It's like roommate situations, basically, I guess is better than a frat house.
Maybe I'll just take it. And if they just take it from me and toss it in the garbage, I'll be none the wiser. But I'm glad Robbie listened to McKay and convinced the mother to talk to a psychiatrist. And I am dreading where I think this story is going, but I'm starting to get antsy and anxious that I want to see
where that boy's at. I'm a little annoyed.
I want to know what's going on, but dang, they're doing a phenomenal job of keep reminding you this is out there, because you got to think that's how Dr. Robbie feels, how McKay feels, that you don't know what's going on, but it's out there. And here's just a subtle reminder throughout your shift. Same for us each week, that this is still there. And I feel like it's going to explode.
Yeah, I'm getting a little annoyed with Robbie about that. That's bothering me a bit. I mean, I understand you thought that line that he said that I don't want to ruin a boy's life for a thought crime. I hear what you're saying, but you're not ruining a boy's life by calling the school and being like, hey, he's not going to get arrested for writing out a list. He's going to get arrested if he's trying to follow through with that list. There's nothing, the cops aren't going to put him away for writing a list. They might investigate him.
They're not. But you're right. It's the right thing to do. So at least the school can be aware. So anything else you want to say about these particular Robbie notes?
No, I'm good.
All right. So moving on to Dr. King with Sweet Little Ginger. I love her care and concern. And I think it was such a sweet moment to see how sweet she was with her sister, even though she's obviously slammed and got a lot going on. But she just has that sweet phone call with her sister.
That was adorable.
I want to just tip my hat to Taylor Dearden, who plays Dr. King. They're really good. All of the actors in the show, most of them, I think, are really, really good. But she does a phenomenal job with those subtle movements, expressions, and gestures to show that, who she is, and that there definitely is spectrum there, but not overdoing it to where it seems after school, especially. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I had the same thought about her this week, that she's very good at showing that her character is very likely neurodivergent, but it's just part of her character. Doesn't debilitate her in any way. It's something that she lives around clearly and has experience living around.
And it's kind of cool too, showing how, she copes with those moments, like the going out and singing Megan Thee Stallion in the parking lot, or looking at the lava lamp on her phone. I love getting these little glimpses, because as somebody who suffers from sometimes very severe debilitating anxiety, I like seeing how people cope, and sometimes those tools can work for me. So that was very cool. Loved the moment with Dana and her on the stairs. and Dana just giving her that sweet advice and there's just that little ounce of courage that she needed to go and take care of her patient the way she needed to and let go of the fact that you cannot control every situation. You can just do the best you can and take care of the person that's here.
Yeah, I kind of thought about the dichotomy between that moment last week when she came in and saved Whitaker's bacon when he had the bleeder that he cut into, and how very easy it was for her to come into that situation and be calm, cool, and collected. And whereas you have this seemingly much less medically fraught situation, but it's a more emotionally fraught, and she was far less comfortable in that role of being a provider when she didn't have it. And you made a good point. I think maybe because of her character's personality, it's showing that she's just more in control. She's more comfortable with the concrete, with things that she can do, not necessarily with the emotional complexities that can come with practicing medicine on humans.
Yeah.
I still love Ginger. She was adorable. I'm going to miss her.
And little Dr. Robbie dancing with her.
Yes, that was adorable. She's so sweet.
Okay. Not my last, sorry. We're getting close though. But my next little point to discuss, and I just wrote Trinity, Trinity, Trinity. So, first note, and I know you'll have something to say about this, but Surgeon Lady hitting on her in the middle of a trauma was disgusting.
It was gross.
And using one of the lamest pickup lines on the planet with, "What's your sign?" Oh, that was so gross.
I still contend they know each other. I feel like you got more hint that they know each other later when she dropped that scalpel.
That was epic.
The way that she said, "You follow me." Like, I think, and again, I could be wrong. Sometimes I think that, well, partly I think it's just me and you, we like to gab, but also I think us being like Taylor Swift fans, and you're trained to look, when you're a Swiftie, to look for the Easter egg everywhere. But maybe I'm just reading way too much into it, but I feel like there is a comfort level in the way that they're trying. It's obvious if they do know each other, they don't want anybody else to know that, but I feel like they're laying little breadcrumbs hints that those two have some kind of prior relationship. And I started thinking, like, is there some kind of rule about, like, if you're married or dating, if you're an intern, you can't intern under your significant other? I don't know. Are there rules about that? Do you know?
I don't know for a fact, but I would imagine if a car parts company is going to have some kind of HR guidelines regarding management and, lower level staff fraternizing with each other. Not to say that you can't do it, but maybe you've got to make HR aware of it, or because it's a power dynamic.
Right. It's definitely a bad idea.
Yeah. So I feel like there's got to be something in place saying, no, this is
I'm going to look into
not
that.
acceptable. However, Dr. Surgeon Lady does not seem to be hiding one bit that she wants all up in Trinity.
Yeah, but maybe that's different. Like, you can start dating after I don't know. And again, I could be wrong.
She's also not directly her student. Yeah. So maybe,
I don't know. I'm going to look into it because I'm just curious about that. But again, maybe she just genuinely is that crass and obvious. And I don't know. It just feels like there's something more there that we're going to find out going down the road.
Well, we see just more glimpses into Trinity's assholery.
Mm-hmm.
Her face when the ladder fall came in and that he needed a chest tube. She gave zero shits about the man on the table. Did you see that grin on her face?
I did.
She was finally going to get to do a chest tube.
I did see that, but I also saw that before that when he was like, "Am I going to die?" She was like, "Oh, you're not going to die. You're going to be okay." I think we just get these glimpses that she's not really all bad. She's just got a huge chip on her shoulder or a cockiness that I'm not debating that she needs to be kicked off that high horse real fast. Because if she turned into, because I don't like Garcia.
Well, she's being groomed to be little baby Garcia.
For sure.
Ugh.
I'm giving her a grace because she's still young and she could change, because we do see these little glimpses where she's more vulnerable. But when she was giving, like, after she screwed up royally and she's still calling Whitaker Huckleberry and she's saying we're all I wanted to just clack her head. I would have loved it if Dr. King had just very calmly no, it was Javati. If Dr. Javati had just wow, right in the nose. That would have been great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would have been down with that. That may be what she needs.
Yeah, I was furious with her. It was a classic case if you can dish it out, but you can't take it, because as soon as she comes up talking her smack and being hateful, and then Whitaker starts to talk about what happened, and she's like, "Don't you dare! I will punch you," or whatever.
Yeah.
And when she stormed off, I'm like, "You are a 5-year-old.
Yeah, you're a child.
I've seen 5-year-old children with more maturity than this woman, and she's making me crazy, man."
That's what they keep kind of showing, is that her facade is so paper thin. Last week, when she could not be wrong about the vial being unopenable and that maybe it was her fault. And then this week, when she just royally screws up and even her buddy is mad at her and there's nothing that she can even fall back on. It's just, I hope that we see her have a major attitude adjustment before she turns into a Dr. Garcia.
I need it to happen sooner rather than later, because,
I want to say, too, do you remember that moment when they were dealing with the ambulance story, the kids that came in? And
the what?
The ambulance story and the kids.
Ambulance?
Yes, Becky, ambulance, because I say it the right way. Anyway, when the kids were there and Dr. Langdon said, does he look like a meth head to you? And Garcia turned and looked at him and went, "What is wrong with you?" I wanted to say, bitch, you were the one in the first episode that was like, call me when they stop screaming.
Yeah.
You don't get to sit in judgment. You, of all people. Like, if Collins had said that to him, okay. But you get out of here.
Right. You just sit there and cut people open and
keep your mouth shut.
The last thing I want to say about that storyline is something is fishy with that family of Silas the Latterfall.
Yeah, I saw
Why
it.
didn't the wife want them to go back to see him? There's something fishy there.
Yeah, and it has something to do with his boobs. I don't know what, but it has to do with what she's noticed about him having gynecomastia. I think it's called, or gynecomastia or whatever.
Do you think maybe he's transitioning?
That's what I'm kind of thinking. Or has transitioned.
She doesn't want the daughter to see it?
I think it's possible that her husband is trans and she doesn't want her daughter to know she's adopted.
Oh, look at you. I didn't even think about that. That's interesting.
Yeah, we'll have to see. But I think it's something to do with, they keep talking about his man titties. So I definitely think they're going to come into play.
Seinfeld, the bro or the man's ear.
Yeah.
That's a great episode. George Costanza, not George. George's dad. Whatever. Anyway. So next up, Javati and her mom. I loved seeing Javati stand up to her mama.
Yeah.
Just a little bit. She's like, it's Victoria or Dr. Sorry, I should know her last name. Her last name is Javati.
Yeah.
Dr. Javati. And then McKay jerking her out of there, just cracking up. I feel like McKay got some payback just a little bit for her judging with what being able to see that whole scenario unfold.
Yeah, I loved how she handled that whole thing. She did get a little bit of her own back, but she did it in such a graceful way. And she also saved her ass when she could tell that she was getting frustrated with her mom.
Yeah, that was very cool.
Yeah. Again, she is just a cool person.
But little baby Javati didn't know who Captain Morgan is.
I know.
That's just such a good reminder of how tiny she is. But man, she killed it. I thought she was going to hit the floor with that hip reduction, but she did it.
That is another thing I Googled, by the way, because I was curious. That is a real medical term that they use for the procedure that they performed.
The Captain Morgan?
Yeah.
That's an epic.
Yeah, that is absolutely the correct medical terminology for that procedure, which makes me laugh.
Robbie's face when she didn't know who Captain Morgan was, and Langdon's like doing the...
Yeah.
That's great.
That was funny. But yeah, I very much saw some of me and Ava in that scene where the mom is talking to her like, honey, and she's like, I'm grown. You're not going to talk to me like that in front of my friend's mom.
Well, you saw you and Ava in this section, but I saw you and Jackson in the final main point.
Oh.
Was the mother and son. Immediately thought of you and Jackson. But before we go into that, from now on, when I enter a room, we start a Zoom call. Basically, anytime you run into me, I expect to be greeted as beautiful Black queen.
In my mind and in my heart, I do that every time.
Well, I'm going to need you to say it out loud.
I will start telling you more often that you are a beautiful Black queen.
That was amazing. I loved that. But before we get into the cuteness of it all, I do think that for anybody who watched this episode and saw that, a lot of people might probably thought that was a little bit dramatic, like over the top or whatever. But I'm going to tell you that's facts. It is so refreshing as a person of color, a biracial person, to go into a store and see a Black person behind the counter, or to go into a medical office and see that your dentist or your doctor is Black. It's comforting because you know it's someone that can relate to what you've been thought of. Like if you've ever been growing up in our town, and Mom and I would go shopping and we constantly got followed around the stores because they thought we were going to steal something. But you walk into a store and you see a Black person there, it's almost like a feeling of solidarity that you're not going to be judged for the color of your skin or whatever. But to see for a Black woman to go into and see a Black medical professional, especially a female, to be able to be there to help, that means something. I'm sorry if anybody, I mean to ramble, but that there was a point to that of how it feels as a person of color to be able to see someone that's going to be taking care of you in some way that looks like you. It just helps you relax in a situation where you would otherwise probably be tense. That is real.
Oh, I thought a lot about you and your mom when I saw that.
Yeah.
That was the first thing that popped into my head was, well, one, your mom's emergency room experience a few weeks ago when she literally chose her new primary care physician through the experience that she had. I have no idea what the ethnicity of that doctor was, but I remember you telling me, and us talking about it, that she has had a bad experience with the one that she's got now. And she found somebody that she felt like truly listened to her. And she's in the medical profession, she's retired from the medical profession.
Yeah.
And again, I don't know what the ethnicity of that doctor was, but that it was so refreshing to find someone that she felt like listened to her and took her seriously, that she did exactly the same thing that mom did. Reminds me of a lot of the Black moms and Black women that I have worked with, that there is a camaraderie amongst professional Black women that is a supportive thing, but it's also seeing yourself in those situations. And I can't, I'm a whitey McWhite lady over here, but I know the statistics and I have heard enough from friends. There's all kinds of data about it. You are statistically far more likely to have a medical crisis if you are a person of color in this country, particularly a woman of color, particularly a Black woman. I did not think it was over the top at all.
I'm very glad.
It was that twofold thing. It was first just that beautiful, supportive camaraderie of wanting to lift up and celebrate seeing another Black woman in a white collar space, but also that behind that, mom's push to see if she could be their primary doctor and all of that is that, thank God, there's somebody that's probably going to, who knows what her history has been with white professionals in the past and what she's been. So I didn't think it was overdone at all.
I'm glad. But I thought of you, and she's like, what were you doing in that room, Dylan? I'm taking that lock off your door. I'm like, I wonder if Mandy's ever said that to Jackson, because I feel like she has.
I would not go. No, I did not. I would not say that to Jackson. I very much like what you do in that arena is your personal business. I'm not going to get too far into it because he's very, very, very private. I don't even think he'd like me using his name in a public setting. But no, I wouldn't do that. I probably would say something incredibly embarrassing to him in that moment because he's at that age where everything I say and do to him is embarrassing. But
that's part of the fun part of us being parents is getting that moment.
Yeah.
All right, so that's all I have for main points before we roll into chart notes. Is there anything else on those topics that I missed or that you want to discuss?
Nope, I'm good.
All right, awesome. So my first chart note is, so we find out Langdon is married to a woman.
Guess that gives up my gay theory. He's obviously a clueless husband.
Got the dog anyway.
Yeah, he just seems to throw money at her. How did he get a dog in the last 4 hours?
My guess is he probably already had the dog ready to pull the trigger, and he probably called his wife and was like, yeah, hey, I just got the kids a dog here's where you need to go pick it up. And that's even more why he's in trouble, because now he's at work and she's at home with a brand new dog and their children.
Been there.
Whitaker's talk with Langdon, I loved it because it was a great moment to see Whitaker finally accepting compliments.
Yeah.
And allowing himself to be proud of what he's done. I think that really showed in his next patient he had. And Kim is the nurse who offered to assist him with his scrubs and also assisted him with the chest tube, stitching in the chest tube. Those two, something magical is going to happen.
I forgot she was already.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, I did notice them.
I'm so excited. I love Whitaker.
He is a sweetie.
Happy to say no scrubs
No
were harmed
scrubs,
during
yeah.
the making of this episode.
Yeah, you're right.
I was a little disappointed because I thought it was going to be a running plot, but I guess they still gave the scrubs their moment by discussing how short his pants were because they didn't have any to fit in.
Yeah, bless him.
Oh,
Walking around with high waters.
so cute. Colin won the pot on the ambulance bet.
Good for her.
It turns out it was two frat guys. Oh my God, that collarbone reset was one of the coolest things I've ever seen in my life.
I think you know how I felt about it, but
I know exactly. I want you to know, as much as you think of me with hate in your heart when you see these procedures, I want you to know every time I see them, I think of you with absolute joy in my heart.
I know.
So
that just stoked the rage.
#winning.
I have a note here where it was funny when Giovanni looked at Collins when she cursed. Like, she was afraid she was going to get in trouble. That made me laugh.
It was cute.
Yeah.
I am glad that Collins is going to buy the baby stroller. I'm
so worried for her.
I don't want them to take this baby away from her. The show writers, I mean. So again, never been pregnant, but I do know people who have struggled to get pregnant. And then the one that, pregnancy happens and they get to a point and they really want to believe and embrace and have showers and decorate and whatnot, but they're so afraid. I loved seeing her just saying, you know what, like Dana said, you and baby deserve happiness. And she's like, you're right, we do. I'm glad she did that.
Didn't she mention in the first episode that she had a miscarriage before?
Yeah.
And you see her have that twinge of pain at one point in this episode, and I'm just so worried for her.
I am too. When she got shoved by the mom.
Yeah, I was like on the edge of my seat, like, you get your hands off her!
Don't you touch Dr. Collins.
She's pregnant! You love fetuses!
But injections, oh my God.
So
Could
gross.
you imagine being filled with silicone caulk from Home Depot?
Why would you do? Why? I am never going. We're too old, I guess. I don't know. But no, that's not true because there's lots of women our age that are injecting shit in their. I wanted lips, Becky. I wanted lips more than I wanted anything in the world. I have been envious of your lips for the last 30 years. You know I want lips. But God didn't give me lips. He gave me a spectacular rack and made me the funniest person on the planet. And I have to live with just that. I can't have lips. I can have them, but I'm going to look like that lady, like a duck, or like I just got my mouth stuck in a bottle. You just can't inject yourself with shit and not look weird. Even when it works out, best case scenario, you still look weird.
Yeah, it bothers me seeing, because I used to watch a lot of Real Housewives. I'm happy to tell you
You've weaned yourself.
Got that cord. But watching these beautiful women, naturally beautiful women progress through the seasons with their procedures and injections. And it's just, I don't want to shame anyone.
No.
For making the choices. If you feel like that's what you need, then do it by all means. If you've got the means and opportunity, do it, but please do it safely, not with the guy that you found on Craigslist.
Injecting caulk in your butt. And I should point out that too, because again, most things are a spectrum and I don't want to shame anybody. I don't want to tell any, like Ava, she adores makeup culture. She loves putting on makeup, blending, all that crazy stuff. She loves it. She looks beautiful and it's harmless. She also knows that she's incredibly smart and talented, and she absolutely does not center her lives around men. But I just hate that we live in a world where so many people feel like they are not beautiful if they don't do these
it's
things.
aging.
Yeah, or
the
they
women,
right.
A man can age and he's sexy.
Right.
I'm going to be honest. The older my husband gets, the sexier that man looks to me. But the older I get, not that he tells me I'm beautiful every single day of the
Right.
week,
It's
but
what we do to
I feel
ourselves.
like it's different. But it is, whether we like it or not, from society's
Yes.
perspective, it is very different for a woman. And women feel such pressure to be this thin, high breasted, cheekbones and full lips, that they go to such extreme lengths to alter their bodies. And I just want to look and be like, you are so beautiful as you are. And
Right.
there's nothing wrong with aging. I get that it's hard to it's hard for me to look at myself in the mirror and not see this, girl that I miss from 20 years ago. But I also can look at myself and be grateful for the fact that, I'm still a looker.
Yes.
I'm still cute AF.
Yeah, and I'm a bit of a hypocrite because I am going gray rapidly and I am not ready. So I keep on dyeing that hair. So I don't think it's one of those things.
That's okay. All of this is okay.
Right.
If you feel like that's what you need, I just personally don't understand the kick of having botulism put in your face.
Right.
For a few less wrinkles. I don't understand it, but I don't want to shame anyone who feels that that is for them.
Yeah.
Do what you need to do so that you feel good about yourself. Just be healthy, be smart, and don't go on Craigslist and get silicone caught from Home Depot injected into your butt. That's all I'm saying.
It's very complex because, again, on the one hand, I don't love the idea that above and beyond the norm in our, the media that shows the quote unquote ideal woman these days, it is heavily makeup, this pressure to look 20 years younger and keep working on your face and doing things individually. I don't want to take that right away from anyone. For one thing, I love my favorite show in the world these days is RuPaul's Drag Race. I absolutely love drag queens and the art that they have and what they do. And a lot of times they do these modifications, sometimes for their job, because that is their career. I don't want to take that right away from anybody. I even, enjoy the outcome of what they do with their art. And I think some of these women look very beautiful. I just hate that it is so pervasive, that it's not just a few little things here and there. It's like some people are so eaten up with this idea that they're not beautiful if they don't do these things, that they just take it to the nth degree, like getting silicone from some guy at home TikTok, injecting it into your butt, I wish that there wasn't that much pressure on women.
And that's my message is you do what you need to do to feel good about yourself, but also please take a moment and look at yourself in the mirror and realize that you're genuinely, truly beautiful just the way you are.
Right. And I don't know how any of us do that. That's just, again, being a woman.
Yep. Good times. Did you see Myrna rolling by?
Flipping of the bird.
As Dr. Robbie is talking about patient satisfaction, and Dana's like, well, at least some patients appreciate you. And then here comes Myrna rolling by and flipping him off.
I feel like Myrna and Ginger are me and you, but I couldn't tell you which is which. I think maybe given any moment of the day, we could be either or.
Yeah, we'd be split personalities there for sure.
Yeah. Sometimes we're just this sweet old lady that needs a sandwich, and sometimes we're giving you the bird.
Because we need the sandwich. Yeah. Minus the one comment where I think he was absolutely, totally, 100% out of line, was telling Collins that if she would have done the abortion without double checking Abbott's measurements, they wouldn't be in this situation. I wanted to punch him at that point. I was like, dude, this is not on her.
Yeah, that was real shitty.
But everything else, all their other interactions, there was some flirting going on. I loved it when she said, I've got to check on my Nepali patient. She likes me. And Robbie said, well, everyone likes you when they're on morphine.
That was funny, but also she's adorable and sweet all the time. He is the one that kind of yo-yos back and forth.
Oh, yeah.
About whether or not he's a jerk or not. Speaking of the Nepali woman, did you notice she was watching the whole interplay between Santos and Garcia.
Yeah.
I'm wondering what she's picking up there. What if she's like me and she's thinking, that's weird.
Yeah, I wish she can't understand what they're saying. So she's going solely by their
Body language
actions. And yeah, she picked up something that was being put down there. I did notice that.
That's what I'm saying. I think it's obvious to everybody that there's something more going on between those two. Even the lady didn't understand a word of English, was like, I also thought it was such a shitty thing for him. That the fact that Collins and Robbie are working through this whole issue with the abortion, with her being pregnant, like, I'm really for us to be ready to find out who Collins' baby daddy is. Maybe she's married, because I thought about something in this episode. Dana wasn't really shocked that she was pregnant in that first episode. There was no real discussion of who's the dad, which maybe Dana wouldn't ask her that, but I thought that was a little strange. And then when she talked about her and Dr. Robbie, she said that was a long time ago. We don't know what that really means. Like you pointed out last time, it could definitely mean that they...
I know what it means. It means recent.
Maybe. But now I'm looking for the Easter eggs. Is Dr. Collins married to somebody completely different now?
No.
I don't know.
Look, you shoved
I
in
know.
my head.
The first
you made me
episode.
believe that that's Robbie's baby.
The first episode,
You made
the
me
second
love
episode.
Collins so I could accept the fact that Noah Wiley is with this woman or has been with this woman. Don't go try to undo all that now.
She's a beautiful saint. You should be flattered to think that Noah Wiley would be with a woman like that. That being said, the more that this goes on and there is no clarification of their relationship, the more I just start having doubts creeping in about, is he even the baby of her or the father of her
Daddy?
baby? Yeah. But it might be, like they had a hookup and she doesn't want him to know. It's just, I don't know. That started nagging at me again this episode of, why didn't Dana seem surprised that she was pregnant? Why didn't she say anything about who's the father or anything?
But she knows.
Maybe, or maybe she's just unlike me, got some discretion and knows when to keep her mouth shut and when something's none of her business. I don't know a lot about that.
Yeah, that's a good possibility. So last chart note is Worm Guy in Brain.
Oh,
That was horrifying.
that is literally one of my nightmares, is brain worms. I have such a fear of being RFK'd. Of course, obviously, now we know that's not a deal breaker from you being in charge of one of the biggest departments in our federal government. But I think I probably would have to just go walk out into traffic if I found out I had baby worms in my brain, even if they were all dead. I don't want to know. I don't want to know.
Fantastic.
That was so gross.
It was gross, but I loved it.
Ugh.
All right. So unless you have anything else that you want to discuss,
No, girl, I'm good.
I think we're done with this part of the episode.
We didn't really get into the frat boys that wrecked the ambulance.
I mean, if you want to talk about them, by all means.
No.
My only thing about them was the clavicle. I'm annoyed with two boys stealing an ambulance. I don't care if you were trying to make somebody look cool.
Like, I don't understand how that's just, yeah.
Thank you for giving me the clavicle reduction, but other than that, I didn't.
You're an idiot. Yeah, that was pretty stupid. I mean, it was kind of nice when you find out that the kid thought he was doing a nice thing for his buddy, getting him to do something that would get the other boys to think it was cool. I loved when Robbie said that about lack of a prefrontal cortex, a fully formed prefrontal cortex, because that is my beef with most people between the ages, particularly young men. They can just sometimes make spectacularly bad choices.
I'm with Javati. That was just it's dumb.
I did think one of the things that I picked up from that was Mohan giving her that look like, yet again, you've said something stupid. But this time Javati was like,
What?
No,
It's
that was dumb. What I thought about there is that it really kind of hammered home that unlike Mohan, she is the same age as these boys.
Mm-hmm.
So at first I was like, girl, you said the wrong thing to a patient again. And then I thought, no, she's 20, they're 20. Mohan maybe shouldn't say that, but absolutely hearing it from Javati is probably exactly what they needed.
Yeah. So my final thoughts. I'm very interested to see how the abortion story plays out. I am genuinely hoping Mom comes around. I enjoyed some more character developments, especially loved seeing Javati get some confidence and Whitaker accepting some compliments and growing. I love getting tiny glimpses into the lives of these med students, except for Trinity.
Yeah, you still enjoy Trinity. You love hating on her. You don't like her, but she adds some spice to the whole thing. At least it's gonna be a nice build up to when she finally has some kind of really big epiphany about who she is. Yeah, ditto. That's all I got to say. I'm enjoying it. It was a good episode. Excited to see next week when we find out more about what's going on with Mantit.
Let's call him Ladderfall or Silas.
I guess until we establish that those aren't man-tits because he's a trans person, then we'll do that. But if we find out it's just because he's got man-tits, I'm going to keep saying it.
I don't doubt that for a second.
I'll put it on hold.
Thank you. A little bit of show news. I was Googling, looking for the synopsis for this episode for this podcast, and I found a very nice article. It's a Screen Rant. If you're familiar with Screen Rant, I'm not, but it was a good article. He says, so it looks like there's a possibility there could be a season 2. When producer John Wells was asked about the possibility, he said, it's really relatively early still in our run. We've only had 4 episodes on the air so far, and it would be very unusual to hear this early. But we're all hopeful and want to spend more time with these characters. We have a fantastic cast, and getting to spend more time with them, I'd be as interested as you are, I think, as an audience member, to see what else there is to learn about these people. So we'll see.
Cool. I saw that article too. Yeah. Yeah. Fingers crossed. I think we've really, I don't know about you, but since we touched base with the Pitt fan page last week, who shouted us out and posted us on their site. Thank you guys, whoever the admin is there. I've really been enjoying seeing them in my feed, and the whoever that is that runs that page, they do phenomenal work. Yeah, they've really very in depth, very detailed, really thorough in looking for news about the show. So if you have not looked that up and you're on Facebook, I really encourage you to, because they really do a great job of curating different articles and interviews that the staff or the staff, so used to saying that, the cast of the show has done. And I did see that article, and, fingers crossed. I hope they do. I hope they do get a season 2.
That would be cool. So we didn't get any feedback on this episode, but we did get a couple of comments from listeners on the podcast overall, and I thought it would be really nice to share those. Mandy, you want to read them?
Don from Spotify wrote, "Hi, Becky and Mandy. I'm really enjoying your P-Dog podcast."
That's me not being able to type properly.
Okay, gotcha. Your pedocast. Yeah, we're definitely not going to call it that.
Let's start over with that one. Mandy, you want to tell us what Dom wrote?
Dom from Spotify wrote, "Hi, Becky and Mandy. I'm really enjoying your podcast. Your opinions and perspectives are very engaging to listen to. Please keep it up." And from YouTube, Splattercast Dad wrote, "Amazing show. I enjoy your podcast." Thank you so much to both of those guys. Dom, this is where I'm going to call back that we did, what was that character? Domino.
Damien,
what was the character?
Marcano or something.
Damien Marcano. Are you, Dom? Is that you? Because we did discuss that Dom is very much like a book talk, dark romance name.
Yes.
So way to go, Dom. And we appreciate it, guys. Thank you so much.
Yeah, we thank you both for your words. This is a labor of love for us, but to know that we're reaching people and people are enjoying our wacky conversations, and it means a lot. So thank you for listening, and we do hope to hear more from you. If anyone else would like to leave us some feedback, just say hi, tell us how amazing we are, whatever. You can email or send us a voice message as an attachment to What's On Tonight 2@gmail.com, and that's What's On Tonight, the number 2@gmail.com. You can visit our Facebook page where there will be a post for the next episode, and you can leave feedback in the comment section or send us a message through Facebook Messenger. And you can also find us on Instagram at What's On Tonight Podcast in the number 2. We would greatly appreciate it if you would leave a review, comment, like, and or share on your podcast listening app of choice. So let us head over to the Doctor's Lounge for a Primanti's sandwich and take a break.
I wish.
Yeah, they looked so good. We could talk about podcast recommendations, some good TV or movies, or just basically anything else we want to share. So, Mandy, you're up first.
I don't really watch a whole lot of TV, but right now I am on a RuPaul's Drag Race binge. It's been on in my house 24/7 for the past week, and I am falling in love with it all over again. The greatest, if you're looking for something out there, if you're like me and Becky and going through a bit of stress and anxiety about, and sadness, really, more than anything, about the direction we're moving in as far as human rights in this country, and particularly where it pertains to LGBTQIA people. This show is, watch it while you can. Hopefully there'll be many, many, many more seasons. It's beautiful and it's funny and ridiculous and campy, but they do, especially the last few seasons. RuPaul genuinely is a pioneer in protecting, guiding, and advocating for drag queens, but also trans individuals in this country. It's very hopeful. It's very inspiring. When the election happened, one of the first things that RuPaul posted to his TikTok page was a TikTok where he just reminded people that the one thing that we have that they can't take away is joy. And so let them do what they're going to do. Stay informed, stay aware, but don't let them steal your joy from you. This show has really, really helped me keep my joy.
Yeah, it's very cool.
One of the things that I've noticed that they did in the last couple of seasons is in some of the episodes where they really feature a lot of history of the LGBTQIA community in this country, trans people in particular. They have a QR code on the screen where you can donate to the ACLU to protect drag in this country and also trans rights, which are not exclusively the same thing, but they do have quite a bit of overlap. On that vein, I will also say, as always, please go, if you have time, money, or resources, please go check out Launchpad Nashville. It is an organization that provides street-free housing to young people between the ages of 18 and 26 in the Nashville area. It is very LGBTQIA affirming, meaning that they are very much, it is not exclusive to those folks, but it is very, very much positive and affirmative of their life choices. That sector of our society is far more likely to find themselves on the streets at some point, particularly in young adulthood, when most of us really, really need to have family and connections. So I encourage anybody that's got any amount of time or money to give to please go and check them out and see what you can do to help. And that's it.
Awesome. I can be heard on Adrenaline Cinema podcast, Panels to Pixels podcast, and here on What's On Tonight podcast. As far as recommendations, Podcastica just finished their coverage of Squid Game Season 2. So if you enjoy the show, I highly recommend you check out their podcast. Really, really cool conversations that they have about the show. So you can head over to podcastica.com, check them out. And there's a ton of other really great podcasts that they have out there. We want to give a big thank you to Mark and Pirate Core Entertainment for giving us this platform and for all the time and effort you give. Please visit the Pirate Core website. It can be found on our Facebook page, where you can find our podcast as well as other podcasts like the Slay Lounge podcast with Billy and Will. And there you can also find other projects that Mark is working on. He and I just finished recording the first episode of the Pirate Core's Music podcast, where we had a wonderful discussion about the amazing Alanis Morissette and her Will Always Be Great Jagged Little Pill album. That should be out soon, so I hope you'll check it out.
That wraps up our coverage of episode 6 of The Pit. We will be back next week where we will break down episode 7 titled 1 p.m.
Thank you so much, everyone, for listening. And remember to please take care of yourselves and each other. I'm Becky.
And I'm Mandy.
We'll catch you next week when we grab the remote and see what's on tonight.
Bye.
So, is he the baby to her daddy?